Hey guys, no, it's been a while since you've seen me, but of course, I am going to be back and give you the rundown of each and every court case that the protesters have been invested in. And of course, today is very exciting because it should, not positively, but it should be the conclusion of the Streets LA versus Joey Rockets temporary restraining order case to try to get it converted into an actual restraining order. We gave a rundown. It looks like this is mainly winding down. Today, mainly focused on Joey Rockets' attorney questioning William Good on the stand, with about 5 minutes from William's attorney, where she will be speaking further in part 2. So guys, there'll be 2 videos, but I know you want to get the information as quickly as you possibly can. So taking a lunch break to do this video for you. So you'll have part 1 and then you'll have part 2, and probably in about 3 hours from now. Where you'll get a full breadth of the case, but wanted to give you at least what I had. And there's so much juice and there's so much information, it's even kind of worth breaking them up anyway into 2 videos. So this is just part 1 of the day, and of course we will talk about part 2 in a handful of hours. So essentially the main arguments that Joey's attorney is trying to make are the same arguments that have been made before. Largely, that William is profiting from the streamers specifically, and that Joey is essentially used as a pawn. Joey is used as this character to give streamers entertainment, and that they've been encouraging Streets LA to go out of his way to goad Joey to interact with him for the streamers' entertainment, and by in turn, Streets profits from the streamers, from the watchers being entertained by William's stream. That's his big argument, and they have a big conversation about the financial situation. And of course, it's the chicken and the egg argument, right? Who went to who first? And then finally, Joey's attorney circles back to the argument that Streets docked him and started all of this. So we'll talk about each point. Essentially, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be looking back and forth from the notes to directly quote Joey's attorney, because there's a lot of interesting nuggets. So forgive me if there's a pause or 2, but you can understand why. Because again, I want to be accurate, and it's most fun to kind of directly quote from the source. And forgive the sun glare. It's a little awkward, but I'm already 2 minutes into this, so I guess I'll have to continue. So, Joey's attorney says, if you're capturing this on live stream, shown in real time, and the recording can be used later, you can save it and you can make it public or private. Meaning, indicating that Streets LA had the option to make any recordings with Joey private, but he did not, which their argument would be a red mark against Streets LA. So Streets LA admits that yes, you had the option to make it private, to turn it off, to turn it on. Then this is where he gets in the thick of it. Joey's attorney pulls up an exhibit. The exhibit is a video clip of one of Streets LA's streams. Coupled with the video clip is the chat window to the right, the chat box. They're looking at this, mind you, they're looking at this through a desktop. So you get maybe a different sense of timing in that regard if you're looking at a phone versus a desktop. And I will say, in this situation, Good was very deft in explaining and reasoning to the attorney why he's not really at fault for what the chat does. So the attorney asks if there's a chat menu, and then the attorney also notes that in the chat menu, people are typing Joey's names in all caps and are saying, while William is about 2 blocks away, there's Joey, there's Joey, there's Joey. And that, apparently, by the attorney's argument, is tangible evidence that William was responding to his chat, and essentially his chat was goading William to go out of his way to be combative with Joey. Here's the thing. Streets LA notes he has 260,000 subscribers. I have 8,500. Sometimes it's tough for me to keep up with the chat. Sometimes I don't even see all the chat. Now think about that if you have 260,000 subscribers. So to say that you are following directives from your chat for financial gain, as Joey's attorney is trying to claim, is not feasible, because you can't possibly focus and keep up with the chat when you have 260,000 subscribers, while at the same time you're taking the effort to film. And what's interesting is that Streets makes a key differentiation. Yes, the chat is tangibly visible, is almost permanently visible when you do it on a desktop, but guess what? When you look at the chat on a phone, which Joey's attorney did not present, then what happens is that the text box disappears after only maybe 2 or 3 seconds. So the whole exhibit that Joey's attorney brought together was essentially negated because the format was off and it's not applicable to actually analyze what was happening. So he was very deft in responding to that and saying, look, I don't keep up with the chat. I don't, you've never seen me really respond to them. So that's a bit of a far-fetched argument. So he was able to very quickly combat that, along with some help with attorneys saying, how is any of the chat stuff relevant to this case in terms of him abusing an elder? Seems a bit of a stretch. So the Joey's attorney says, December 29th, video is outside the info center. Here's a screenshot. You see Joey, and you see people in the chat writing, Joey, free the dog. 6 people, this is what the attorney's saying, 6 people wrote that. 3 people write, Joey, oh no. But then Good says, well, the chat isn't always available to me. And as Street says, as I just said, you have only a split second to see the words before it fades. I rarely look at the 20,000 comments speeding by. And then there's another exhibit that Joey's attorney presents, which is a TikTok video of Joey. Again, where more chats are going by. And Joey is saying he is trying to protect himself from the legal system, where he's kind of speaking about his situation with Streets. And then Streets said he didn't read those messages on TikTok. So that was thrown out the window. Now, another tactic that Joey's attorney tries to make. We are talking about how much do you actually tangibly profit? Is the judge gonna buy any of that argument? So Joey's attorney says, your declaration says, I don't make money streaming. That's misleading, is it not? Good says, I don't make money, I make income. I help with streamers' phones if their equipment is broken, or I use it to help spend a few $100s on businesses that are in that direct area, whether it be for ice cream, whether it be whatever, to just kind of make sure they're in a decent position. And the attorney retorts, you make income, but you spent it on activism? The last time you said you made between $15,000 and $100,000 a month. A year, forgive me. You said you made $15,000, 2 very different numbers. $15,000 to $100,000 a year. Williams said, last year on YouTube, I made, last year, not last month, last year on YouTube, I made $15,000. It's not always $15,000 a month. So he's saying he made $15,000 for the entire year last year. But forgive me, the estimate that he made previously, he has in the past made $1,500 a month, totaling to $100,000 a year. And the attorney says, other than helping out the homeless, buying ice cream, cell phone, do you spend money on anything else? Good says, well, yes, for food, for transport, for streamers trying to get involved. But Joey's attorney retorts, but you've had enough to file a lawsuit against the LAPD. So he brings up this random lawsuit against the LAPD, kind of out of nowhere. Isn't that the reason you said you're doing this? To raise money for your lawsuit against the LAPD. So that he threw in this random thing saying that essentially this is all a ploy, and this targeting of Joey is all a ploy so Streets LA could raise money for a completely separate intangential lawsuit against the LAPD. And then the attorney said, isn't it true? You said you have enough for this lawsuit. And then he said, isn't it true? You said in live streams that you earn enough to pay your fees. And isn't it true that that's the reason you're doing this? And Good again replies no. And Joey's attorney again goes, Joey's attorney shows this video of William saying, answering a question in the chat. And William is answering questions in the chat. He's reading out loud. He's saying, how much do I earn from the live stream? And he says, enough to pay my lawyer fees. That's why I'm doing it. And this is a quote, direct quote from his video. So that did look good for Joey's attorney. And apparently it said, isn't the main reason for YouTube to earn, and then the attorney cuts in, so aren't you saying the main reason for YouTube is to earn enough for a lawsuit against the LAPD? Well, he just said lawsuit specifically. He didn't say what. He didn't say maybe somebody were trying to sue in the future. And then William quickly retorted saying, no, it was completely misconstrued. He used some of that to get some key information for police officers who were committing injustices, maybe perhaps for a lawsuit and advocacy of some of his friends who were victims of their brutality. So he was able to retort fairly quickly with that. So then they try to make, then a new exhibit is shown, and the screenshot is this rise in subscribers from 220,000 to 260,000. And the lawyer shows the screenshot, and he says again, you said the purpose of your YouTube is to audit the Church of Scientology. When one accesses your page, they can see live streams, yes? And below, there are links in your YouTube page after they see this live stream or when they go onto your page, that they could see links to your PayPal and other payment options, of which you have 4 additional payment options to choose from. These are ways people to donate, and it goes directly to you, says Joey's attorney. And of course, Street says yes, but he says, well, I'm a conduit. Yes, it goes directly to me, but you've seen tangibly on what I've been spending the money on specifically. Then there's a back and forth, and there's a big conversation about memberships. So Joey's attorney says, you could do memberships in your channel as well. How many members do you have? And Good said he didn't know, maybe 100. And then Joey's attorney says, how much do you make from each membership, from the memberships altogether a month? And William Good says maybe about $300 to $400. And Joey says, so out of the 260,000 followers, only 10 are members, because he was looking at the membership prices and kind of adding them together. And William said, well, I could check. And he says, well, I have 138 members, which totals to 370. That's what I made from memberships last month specifically. So he was trying to say that this is an unrealistic amount that he raised, that he must have been raising upwards of $30,000 from all his memberships because he had so many followers. And of course, that'll directly translate to people becoming direct members, which obviously is not the case. Guys, I'm going to move. This camera looks terrible. Bear with me. This is a lot to chew on, so I appreciate you guys being patient, but we got a lot of juicy quotes. I think this looks better, doesn't it? Or maybe not that much. I still look kind of creepy. Here, I'll sit down. How about that? Damn son. Okay. Just may as well sit down because we got a lot to talk about. So he talks about that there are 3 different tiers for memberships. And of course, the main tier is the cheapest one. That's the most frequent amount of memberships that people purchase, which doesn't actually add up to that much at the end of the day. And then there's this big conversation about what auditing means. The attorney really wants to press that. He says auditing includes filming going in and out. First Amendment auditing includes what I described in filming the police. That's goading the police. So Joey's attorney is trying to say, well, you do First Amendment auditing. That is the definition of First Amendment auditing, is goading the police. Well, if that's what you do, aren't you doing the same thing to Joey? If you goad the police and your gig is to goad, essentially, then aren't you doing the same thing as Joey? Which really, again, you can see how little they have to work with, because that's quite a ginormous stretch just to say part of your work with the police is to get them involved in interactions and to get them to prove how supportive of civil liberties they are, doesn't mean you're trying to do the same thing to Joey at all. Then another argument that Joey tries to make is, he said, well, aren't you convincing a lot of these people who watch you to stop auditing the police or audit the post office or government entities, and that you'll make much more money auditing and doing this exact same thing with Scientology? The exact quote he used was, isn't it true you said people who audit Church of Scientology can make 10 times more money than if they just audited the police or the post office? And then Joey's attorney said, isn't it true you said, in addition to moral reasons that you protest the Church of Scientology, that there are also financial reasons, that one could make $20,000 to $30,000 a month? And Good said, I don't make that. Joey's attorney says, but you're out most nights. And then William Good says, it's saying specifically, this whole argument back and forth is Joey's attorney saying you've not only tried to convince other people to go from auditing government entities or the police, but you've convinced them to harass Scientology, and that have showed that they can make, and have indicated to them that they can make $20,000 to $30,000 a month if they do that. So the attorney is essentially, this all kind of boils down to almost this light RICO advocacy, this argument that everything is kind of interconnected and it's part of this bigger group bigger than you would necessarily expect at first glance. And so then they essentially, Joey's attorney drops the argument. But then there's another one, which is, how necessary is this restraining order specifically? Because what they're trying to argue is that William could go back and audit the police. And if it's not about profit, then why doesn't he just stick to auditing the police in other locations? Because Joey's attorney specifically asked, so you're out most nights. William Good replies, I haven't been out in weeks, maybe once or twice. That was about it. And then Joey's attorney says, so you don't need to worry about a TRO then. William Good quickly replies, no, I need to watch cops. They could be anywhere, and that is a particularly busy spot where people get harassed. A very quick and pretty reasonable retort. And then the attorney says, so you said your goal was to show how much one makes auditing the Church of Scientology. William says in response, I didn't say that. And the attorney responds, you described that your protesting is loud and confrontational. In your declaration, you described Joey as angry and an aggressive counter-protester. But he's not really aggressive, is he? Joey's not aggressive, guys. Not at all, right? So that's the argument that this attorney is making. He's trying to say that William Good is misidentifying this poor, pathetic old man, that he's not aggressive in the slightest. And that this was all, again, centered around an intended profit margin. And so, yeah, so you say, but he's not. And then Good said, well, he's been pretty aggressive. Joey's attorney responds, but he's not really aggressive, is he? He's never yelled at you. Good said he did. And then he actually got arrested for that whole situation. So again, he was able to very quickly retort with pretty recent history. Joey's attorney says then, has he ever cursed at you, brought signs, brought a megaphone, led a chant, organized others to join him, as if to imply, hey, William, that's what you're doing. My guy never did it, therefore I'm in the right. Obviously, stretch of an argument, but that's the argument that he's going for. And William Good just says, I'm not aware of him doing any of that. And it didn't look like he did do any of that, right? So William is being honest but not directly answering it. Next up was the doxing. Joey's attorney says, so you posted a picture of Joey to identify his identity, meaning to dox him. Good quickly responds with a pretty quick retort. He says no, to see if Joey was part of the Church of Scientology or if he was paid by them. not to give his direct name, not to give his address, not to give his phone number, not to give his criminal history, but simply to see if Joey was in connection with Scientology. That's pretty much it. And then Joey's attorney pulls up a Twitter post by William Good, which says, "Can anyone identify this asshole?" Which is a picture of Joey, and William then responds that he used facial recognition to kind of try to figure it out. So the Joey's attorney says, "That's the night you first met Joey." And this tweet that you posted about him trying to be identified, that tweet got 20,000 views. In your declaration, this is Joey's attorney continuing, you said, "I never broadcasted his personal info." And then he points to the tweet. So, under oath, you said you never sought him out. They're all fake. No. So you're not telling the truth. And Good says, "No, I needed to identify him to see if there's a direct connection with the Church of Scientology, to see if there's something bigger, if there's a bigger force against me." And then again, Joey's attorney comes back on December 29th. The chants weren't done with just what I said previously. You also chanted, "Save Joey's dog." And before you got to the info center, there were chats telling you that Joey was there. So this is, again, him harping on that same argument. And he also mentions Jessica, and that's a tactic that attorneys will use. If somebody's a witness, you could try to dismantle the witness credibility by bringing them up at a separate time and remarking that their testimony shouldn't be taken seriously. So Jessica was one of the people in the chat saying to William that Joey spawned out of nowhere. And then the Joey's attorney says, "Well, then did you come up to Joey after hearing this from the chat?" Good said, "No, he did not hear that in the chat." Again, he can't follow the chat, as I talked about previously. Again, a lot of these arguments are just argued in circles. So they come up, and then you're finished talking about it, and then 10 minutes later, they come up yet again. So Joey's attorney says, so you're essentially responding to the chat so you could go and interact with Joey. And Good said, "No, Joey was disrupting the protest. He showed up at 1 a.m, meaning that Good was heading in that general direction to show up at the protest, and there was Joey, and he was disrupting it. And then Joey's attorney said, "But there's no one else there. By going to that location, were you not seeking him out?" And then Street says in response, "No, he was disrupting our protest. There was already something going on." And so that will later be discovered how many people are actually on that sidewalk next to the Scientology building. But I think if you analyze the video, you'll quickly see that it was Joey in that situation. Part 2. So that was pretty much it, man. That was the entire crux of Joey's case. And this is a longer video, a little more scatterbrained, disjointed, simply because there were a lot of important quotes that I wanted to kind of weave in there. But again, long story short, the two arguments: are you profiting, William? William says no, he gives it back to the community. Joey's attorney says, well, look at all the amount of followers you have, that doesn't make sense. Look at all the money you make. William quickly retorts, well, memberships actually only pay a couple $100. It's not nearly as big as you think. And then the other argument being, you have tried to dox Joey. William saying no, he wanted to get information because he felt like he was being harassed and wanted to see if Joey was connected with the Church of Scientology. So again, that argument thrown out the window. There's point, counterpoint, and Streets is good on the stands, and Streets' attorney trained him very well to reply to all of this. So did you dox him? No. And then the third thing that he talked about again is, have you sought Joey out? No, Joey was there, and he can't follow his chat and is not directly responding to requests from the chat specifically. So the last little bit is the very beginning of William Good's attorney talking. And she said, when Joey Eckers said, you sought him out, this is William Good's attorney talking to William now, were there others streaming? And Good said, I was there for 3 hours. His attorney says, are there public videos of you getting arrested where you're emotional? are you aware of rumors that your son's are you aware of rumors being created that your son's murder was due to cop watching? So a lot of the Scientology people have brought up the fact that Streets LA's son was murdered, and that specifically, and this is completely incorrect, but they're trying to say it was because of William's live streaming efforts watching cops. Essentially, what this argument says is that it's Scientology trying to goad William, that they're trying to take the most painful part of his life and say that the reason the most painful part of your life happened is because you were live streaming against cops specifically. Because of your specific actions, your son died. Now, obviously, if you analyze that for more than a millisecond, you realize it's complete bullshit. But William's attorney is very smart to bring up that argument and remark that this is sort of how Scientology tries to loop people into interactions so they could later attack them. They try to get them emotional. So any emotional duress or perhaps slight extremism that Streets displayed towards Joey, well, he was the one being goaded from the very beginning, interestingly enough. And then another fair thing. They talked about the monetization, and this is a great thing to end on because she'll have a lot more juicy questions. But she knocks down the monetization part, saying, do you consider the LA Times to be legitimate news? Now, we could have a conversation about that, but he says yes. He says, well, do they not charge $5 for subscribers? You have to pay to read their content. He says yes. Do they still provide a good? Yes. So what's the relevancy of the cash? Not that William is even profiting, and he quickly was able to negate that, but even if you are profiting, how does that have to do with you abusing an elder? That has nothing to do with the restraining order case, and that should not be really even considered in evidence. So a lot of really interesting stuff, and this is a continuation of the last time where it really seems like Joey's attorneys were grasping at straws. And they pretty much used the same arguments. They had a few additional screenshots, 2 additional videos that essentially relayed the same things that they were trying to say before. So I don't think it's much of a case, but we should have the result by tonight or by late this afternoon, about 2 to 3 hours. So I'll give you that. Guys, if you like the reports, we got a lot. We got Aja and Danny coming up next week. Do have a little GoFundMe and as well as a PayPal and Venmo, so I have that link just to stay at a little dumpy motel to stay broadcasted for all these. And a quick update on Solomon and Zero Dark Tony. I don't know what's happening, man. I went to the courtroom. Solomon was not there. His name was on the list. I had to go and check out the Williams situation, but Solomon was not present. So I don't know if Solomon gave up, but it's weird because I know he's formally hired a server to serve Zero Dark Tony. So I don't know if Zero Dark Tony has a victory in this or not, but I emailed Solomon being like, what's up? But he has not showed. So you got to present the truth when you got to do it, and it may very well be a victory for Zero Dark Tony. Maybe Solomon got scared off. Who knows? But hopefully he'll respond to me. And this is just conjecture, so I have no idea if that's the actual case. But from what I gathered, all I could tell you is that Solomon was not there. His mother was not there. Nobody was there. And I went back. I went to Streets LA's, then went back upstairs to Solomon's, and again, still nobody there. So who knows what happens, but I was looking out for him. But yeah, I will see you guys for part 2 in about 3 hours. Take care. Bye.